I stood in the doorway of my daughter's home office, my hand still on the doorknob, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The laptop sat open on her desk, the screen glowing in the dim evening light. I hadn't meant to look. I'd only come in to borrow a phone charger. But then I saw my name at the top of an email thread, and something in my gut told me to read it. Once Mom signs the deed transfer next week, we can list the house by January. Rick says we're looking at $850 Kelvins minimum. Mom will never know what hit her by the time she figures it out. We'll be in Costa Rica. My daughter's words. My daughter, Rachel, who'd insisted I move in with her after Tom died. Rachel, who'd said she couldn't bear the thought of me rattling around in that big house all alone. Rachel, who I'd raised by myself after her father left when she was 6. I read the email again, then again. The room tilted slightly, and I gripped the edge of the desk. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But it was. And there were more emails, dozens of them, all planning, scheming, counting my money like I was already dead. I closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it, walked back to my room with the phone charger I didn't need anymore, and sat on the edge of the bed. It was 7:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in November. Outside, the first snow of the season was starting to fall. Inside, I was trying to figure out how to breathe. That was 3 weeks ago. Let me start at the beginning, because if you're going to understand how I ended up here sitting in my own apartment at 71 years old, drinking coffee and watching the sun come up over a life I built from scratch after everything fell apart, you need to know how it all started to crumble. Tom died on March 14th, a heart attack at the grocery store. One minute he was comparing prices on olive oil, the next he was on the floor. They said he was gone before the ambulance even arrived. We'd been married 46 years. I thought I'd have at least a few more. The grief was a physical thing, like carrying a boulder on my chest, but I managed. I'd always been good at managing. I kept the house clean, paid the bills on time, met my friend Dorothy for coffee every Thursday. I wasn't falling apart. I was doing exactly what Tom would have wanted I was living. But Rachel had other ideas. "Mom, you can't stay in that house alone," she'd said, showing up unannounced 2 months after the funeral. She'd brought her husband Kyle, and they'd walked through my home like real estate agents, commenting on the dated kitchen and the original hardwood that could use refinishing. "I'm fine here," I'd told her. "This is my home." "It's too much house for one person," Kyle had said, running his hand along the banister Tom had sanded and refinished himself. "The maintenance alone must be overwhelming." It wasn't. I'd hired a handyman for the heavy things. Everything else I managed. But Rachel wouldn't let it go. She called every day. She sent articles about elderly people who'd fallen and couldn't get up. She painted pictures of me dying alone, undiscovered for weeks. "We have that mother-in-law suite," she'd said during one of her campaigns. "You'd have your own space, your own bathroom. We could look after you." It would give me such peace of mind, Mom. I should have heard the word "we" and known. I should have paid attention to the fact that Kyle was always there during these conversations, nodding along, adding his thoughts about how it just makes sense financially. But I was tired. I was lonely. And when Rachel looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I just lost Dad. I can't lose you too," I broke. "Okay," I'd said. "Let me think about it." 2 weeks later, I'd agreed to sell the house and move into their home in Asheville. Rachel had been overjoyed. Kyle had immediately started talking about streamlining the process and handling the paperwork so I wouldn't have to worry about a thing. The house sold in 6 days. We got $847,000. After the mortgage payoff and closing costs, I had $723,000. Kyle suggested we put it in a joint account just temporarily, for easier access during the transition. He said it would make everything simpler. I hesitated. Something felt wrong. But Rachel had hugged me and said, "Mom, we're family. You can trust us." So I did. That was my first mistake. The second was not reading the papers more carefully when Kyle presented them to me 3 weeks after I moved in. "Just some forms for the bank," he'd said. "Boring stuff. Sign here and here." I'd signed. I'd trusted. I'd been such a fool. But that Tuesday night, standing in Rachel's office, reading those emails, I stopped being a fool. I took out my phone and I photographed every email on that screen. My hands shook so badly I had to take some of the photos twice, but I got them all. Then I went back to my room, the mother-in-law suite that Rachel had made sound like a gift, but that I now understood was a holding cell, and I started planning. I couldn't leave immediately. That would tip them off. And I needed information. I needed to know exactly what they'd done with my money, what papers I'd signed, what I'd agreed to without knowing it. So I became invisible. For 3 weeks, I played the role of grateful mother, confused widow, harmless old woman. I smiled at dinner. I said yes when Rachel suggested I rest more and not worry about things. I watched as Kyle brought home papers for me to sign, and I signed them, but not before reading every word and photographing every page. They thought I was docile. They thought I was lost in grief, easy to manipulate. They were wrong. During the day, when they were at work, I went through their home office, methodically, carefully. I found the deed transfer papers, already filled out, just waiting for my signature. I found bank statements showing my $723,000 had been moved into an account with only Kyle's name on it. I found their travel itinerary, 2 one-way tickets to San Jose, Costa Rica, dated January 15th. I photographed everything. I also found something else. A notebook tucked in the back of Kyle's desk drawer with a list of my assets, the house sale amount, my savings account, Tom's life insurance payout that I hadn't even told Rachel about, even the approximate value of my jewelry. Next to each item was a check mark. All but one, a retirement account Tom had set up that they apparently didn't know about yet. They'd been planning this for months, maybe even before Tom died. That's when I knew I couldn't just leave. I had to take everything with me. Every penny, every document, every piece of evidence. Because if I didn't, if I just ran, they'd come after me. They'd use those papers I'd signed against me. They'd say I was incompetent, confused, that I'd agreed to all of this. So I made a plan. On that third Friday, I told Rachel I was going to the library. She'd been encouraging me to get out more, probably so she could search my room for anything valuable I might have hidden. I took my purse, my phone, and a folder of documents I'd prepared. But I didn't go to the library. I went to the bank. The same bank where Tom and I had kept our accounts for 38 years. Where Margaret Chen had been our personal banker for the last 15. Margaret took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "I need your help," I told her. "And I need you to not tell anyone I was here." I showed her everything. The emails, the photographs of statements, the notebook with my assets listed like items at an estate sale. I watched her face change as she read, from confused to shocked to angry. "How long have you known?" she asked. 3 weeks. "And you've been documenting everything?" "Yes." She looked at me with something like respect. "Ellie, this is fraud. Clear, documented fraud. You could go to the police." "I know, but right now, I need to secure my money. Can you help me?" Margaret could help. Within an hour, we'd moved every dollar from that joint account. Turns out Kyle had put my name on it after all, probably to make it look legitimate, into a new account at a different bank across town. An account with only my name, with statements going to a P.O. box I'd rented that morning. "What about the papers you signed?" Margaret asked. "I'm seeing a lawyer on Monday. But first, I need to disappear." "Where will you go?" I smiled for the first time in 3 weeks. "I have a plan." The plan was named Dorothy. Dorothy Brennan, my Thursday coffee friend. Dorothy, who'd been widowed 7 years before me, and who'd rebuilt her life with a fierceness I'd always admired. Dorothy, who had a 2-bedroom apartment, and had once told me, "If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me." I called her from the bank parking lot. I need somewhere to stay for a while, I said. And I can't explain why over the phone. How soon can you be here? An hour. I'll put clean sheets on the guest bed. That's the thing about real friends. They don't need the whole story to know you're in trouble. They just open the door. I didn't go back to Rachel's house that night. I sent her a text from a gas station. Staying with Dorothy tonight. Not feeling well. Don't worry. She didn't even call to check on me. At Dorothy's apartment, I told her everything. She listened, her face growing harder with every sentence, her coffee getting cold in her hands. That goddamn girl, she said when I finished. I'm sorry, Ellie. I know she's your daughter, but that goddamn girl. I know. What do you need? Time, space, and maybe help moving the rest of my things out when they're not home. Dorothy smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Honey, I've been waiting for an excuse to use my son's pickup truck. When do we raid the castle? 2 days later, while Rachel and Kyle were at a Sunday brunch with his parents, Dorothy and I took everything that mattered from that mother-in-law suite. My clothes, my photographs, the jewelry box with my mother's pearls, the quilt Tom's grandmother had made. We filled the truck bed in 45 minutes. I left a note on the bed. It said, "Thank you for your hospitality. I've decided to make other arrangements. I'll be in touch through my lawyer." I didn't leave a phone number. I didn't leave an address. I simply left. Rachel called 16 times that Sunday evening. I didn't answer. Kyle called twice. I blocked his number. On Monday morning, I met with Catherine Pierce, an attorney Dorothy had recommended. Catherine was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, and when I showed her my evidence, she actually laughed. They documented their own fraud, she said. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Can they claim I agreed to it? I did sign some papers. Catherine pulled out the photographs I'd taken of the papers Kyle had me sign. She studied them for a long time. These are authorization forms for bank account access, she finally said. Nothing about deed transfers or asset sales. And look here, she pointed to a signature line. They forged your initials on this second page. See how it's slightly different from your actual signature? She was right. The E.M.P. Ellie Marie Patterson wasn't quite right. The P was wrong. They were sloppy, Catherine said. Greedy and sloppy. That's good for you. We can prove fraud, forgery, and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. I don't want to press charges, I said. Catherine looked surprised. Why not? Because she's still my daughter. Because some part of me hopes this was all Kyle's idea, that she got caught up in something she didn't understand. I know that's probably stupid. It's not stupid. It's human. I just want my money back. All of it. And I want them to know that I know. I want them to know they didn't get away with it. Catherine nodded slowly. I can do that. But Ellie, you need to understand people like this don't usually stop. If they think there's still money to get, they'll try again. Then I'll make sure they know there's nothing left to get. That afternoon, Catherine sent a letter to Rachel and Kyle. It outlined every piece of fraud we'd documented. It demanded the immediate return of all funds, the destruction of any forged documents, and a signed agreement that they would never contact me for financial assistance of any kind. The alternative, the letter said, was criminal charges and a very public trial. They had 48 hours to respond. Rachel called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mom, don't. Please. Just listen. I saw the emails, Rachel. I saw the notebook. I know about Costa Rica. Silence. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she finally said. Kyle said. I don't care what Kyle said. You're my daughter. You were supposed to love me, not rob me. We weren't robbing you. We were just the house was too much for you anyway, and Kyle thought. Kyle thought he could steal from a grieving widow and get away with it. And you helped him. I heard her crying. 2 months ago, that sound would have broken my heart. Now, I felt nothing. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sign the papers my lawyer sent. Return every penny, or I press charges. Those are your options. Mom, please. I hung up. They signed the papers. The money was returned by the end of the week. All $723,000, plus the $47,000 they'd already spent, which Kyle apparently paid back by taking out a loan. Catherine said we could still press charges if I wanted. The evidence was clear. The case was solid. I said no, because here's what I realized. Sitting in Dorothy's apartment, drinking coffee, and looking out at a city I barely knew, I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. That was 8 months ago. Now I have my own apartment. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, a living room with a view of the park. I bought furniture I liked, not furniture that made sense or was practical. I hung paintings Tom always hated. I got a cat. I also got something else. My granddaughter, Sophie. Sophie was Rachel's daughter, 22 years old, finishing her master's degree in social work. She'd been studying abroad during all of this, and when she came back and heard what had happened, she called me immediately. Grandma Ellie? Hi, sweetheart. I heard everything. Are you okay? No one had asked me that. Not since Dorothy. Everyone else just wanted to know what happened, wanted the details, wanted the drama. Sophie just wanted to know if I was okay. I'm getting there, I'd said. Can I see you? Your mother might not like that. I don't care what my mother likes right now. Can I see you? She came over that afternoon. We sat in my little apartment, and she cried, and she apologized for things that weren't her fault. I knew Kyle was bad news, she said. I told Mom. But she said I didn't understand their financial situation, that they were stressed, that they needed help. So they decided to steal mine. Sophie laughed, even though she was crying. I'm so sorry, Grandma. You didn't do anything wrong, Sophie. Can I still see you? I mean, even though Mom and I aren't talking right now, and Dad's being Dad about everything, I took her hand. Sweetheart, you can see me anytime you want. You're always welcome here. And she is. She comes over every Sunday now. We cook dinner together, watch old movies, talk about her studies and her dreams. She wants to work with elderly people, helping them navigate systems designed to confuse them, protecting them from people like her own parents. I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen to other people, she told me last week. I believe her. As for Rachel, I haven't spoken to her since that phone call. She sends emails sometimes. They start with Mom, please, and end with I made a mistake. They never mention the money. They never say the word sorry more than once. I don't respond. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear whatever explanation she's crafted, whatever story she's told herself about why it was okay to plan my exploitation while I grieved my husband. But not today. Today, I'm sitting in my apartment, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up. I'm 71 years old. I have my own space, my own life, my own choices. I have enough money to be comfortable for the rest of my life, thanks to Tom's planning and my refusal to be a victim. I have Sophie, who calls me every day just to check in. I have Dorothy, who still picks me up for coffee every Thursday, and who never once said I told you so, even though she'd warned me about Kyle from the start. And I have something else. I have the knowledge that I saved myself. Nobody rescued me. Nobody had to. I documented everything, planned carefully, acted decisively, and took back control of my own life. At 71 years old, I proved that being older doesn't mean being helpless. It doesn't mean being easy to fool. It doesn't mean accepting whatever your children decide you deserve. I learned some things through all of this. Hard lessons, the kind that leave scars. I learned that love and trust are not the same thing. You can love someone deeply and still need to verify their actions. I learned that being careful with your finances isn't being paranoid, it's being smart. No matter how much you trust someone, keep one account that's only yours. Keep documents in a safe place. Read everything before you sign it. I learned that being a burden on your children isn't about age or ability, It's about being dependent on people who see you as an inconvenience. My presence wasn't the problem. Their greed was. I learned that it's never too late to start over. At 71, I built a new life. If I can do it, anyone can. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Not scream, not fight, not try to make people understand. Just take what's yours, protect yourself, and leave. That's what I did. And I'm happier now than I've been since Tom died. Last week, I started volunteering at the senior center, helping other older adults understand their financial documents. I've already helped 3 people realize they were being manipulated by family members. I've helped them get lawyers, move money, take back control. Sophie comes with me sometimes. She's learning. She's going to be amazing at what she does. And me? I'm learning too. I'm learning that life doesn't end when you lose your partner. It doesn't end when your children disappoint you. It doesn't end when everything falls apart. It ends when you stop fighting. And I'm not done fighting. I'm sitting here, in my apartment, drinking my coffee, watching the sun come up over a city I've learned to love. I'm planning my day. Maybe I'll visit the art museum. Maybe I'll meet Dorothy for lunch. Maybe I'll just sit here and read a book. The point is, the choice is mine. Rachel and Kyle are still in Asheville, still in that house, still married as far as I know. They never got their Costa Rica escape. They never got my money. They never got to list my home and disappear on my dime. And they never will. Because I'm not just Ellie Patterson, widow, mother, pushover. I'm Ellie Patterson, survivor. I'm Ellie Patterson, woman who saw the trap and walked out of it with her dignity and her savings intact. I'm 71 years old, and I've never felt stronger. If you're reading this, if you're living this, if someone in your family is treating you like you're already gone, like your money is theirs, like your independence is negotiable, listen to me. It's not too late. It's never too late. Document everything. Trust carefully. Get help from people who see you as a person, not an asset. And if you have to leave, leave. Take your money, take your dignity, and build something new. You deserve that. No matter what your children say, no matter what promises they made, no matter how guilty they try to make you feel, you deserve safety, respect, and control over your own life. I got mine back. You can too. The sun is fully up now, golden light streaming through my windows. Sophie will be here soon for brunch. Dorothy texted that she's bringing bagels. My cat is purring on my lap. This is my life now. The one I built from the ruins of trust, from the ashes of betrayal, from the determination to never be anyone's victim. And it's a good life. It's mine.